Hi, welcome to Module 3, Legislation at Health and Safety at Work. We have three main legislations surrounding health and safety at work. These legislations are put in place to safeguard the working environment and the people that work there. Not just the people that work there, but the visitors and subcontractors as well. With the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, with the Health and Safety Regulations 1981, and the Management of Health and Safety Work Regulations 1999. A lot of these regulations, what they do is they provide a safeguard so that people walk out the same way as they came in at the end of the day. Maybe a little more dirty, a little more dishevelled, but with the same numbers of fingers and toes and the same health as they came in. Part of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 says that we should risk assess the workplace and mitigate any risks that may provide a danger. And as part of that risk mitigation, we should provide first aiders. And they should be suitably and sufficiently trained for the job that we are asking them to do, which is why we provide training courses. Your first aid risk assessment is normally carried out by your health and safety professionals on site, and it will differ between sites. For example, if you've got a site with 5 people that's fairly low risk, there may be an office environment, it will be completely different than if you're working in a place with 200 people and it's maybe a quarry that uses explosives, or a highly industrialised workplace that uses lots of plant and machinery, and the risks are much greater. The facts to consider when looking at these risks is the size of the organisation. So like I say, if you're working in a group of 5, there's a lot less risk than if there's 200 people. So you need a lot less first aiders. As a rule of thumb, in a low risk environment, the Health and Safety Executive says that we should have 50 people for every first aider on site. And in a higher risk environment, we should have 25 people for every one first aider that we have on site. So yeah, if you have 50 people on site, in a low risk environment, you would have one first aider available at all times. In a high risk, you would have 2 first aiders available at all times. History of accidents and illnesses. So if you look back at your health and safety record and your accidents and your illnesses, and you have a huge amount of them, you may want to add some additional first aiders there to give you that extra protection. If your site is spread out and you've maybe got an office down one side of the site and a warehouse at the other, you may want to spread your first aiders out across the site to give you more of a coverage, or you may want additional people in additional areas that are harder to get to, so that you have first aid cover for all the areas on your site. The distribution of your workforce, your shift patterns. So if you've got 100 staff and it's a low risk environment, we already says you need two members of staff there, going by the HSE guidance. However, if they're on 2 shifts, you would need 2 first aiders on all the shifts if you have 100 people per shift. You can't just have them on the day shift and have nothing on the night shift. You should have them per shift. So you should take a look at that when you're planning out your first aiders. Do you have high needs workforce as well? People that are pregnant, people that have got disabilities. A lot of workforces will have a lot of people with disabilities, and this comes with its own factors, and you may want to add additional first aid cover in because you may be running at slightly higher risk. Also, absenteeism of first aiders. It's not that they're all sick all the time, but they need holidays as well. So factor in the fact that if you're having 100 staff and they're on 1 shift a day, you need more than 2, because you are going to have them on holiday. So if you have one on holiday and another one phones in sick, you have no first aid cover there. So you will require additional first aiders to provide for that sickness and for that holiday cover. You also have to provide first aid for subcontractors and visitors to your site. So when you're looking at 1 in 50 people, how many visitors do you actually have to your site? Some people have lots and lots of members of the general public coming in. Such places as shops, supermarkets will require more because they may only have 50 staff on, but they may have 100 visitors in. And they're responsible for first aid cover for those visitors under this Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. So it's always good to factor in all these things to your risk assessment that you're going to be doing. First aid kits. What should be in a first aid kit? Again, it depends on your business. For example, my daughter's a dance teacher. In her first aid kit that she carries, there's a lot of cold compresses because it's the type of injury that's most common to her industry. It's what she expects to see a lot more of. There's not a lot of burn dressing things in there because she doesn't work with anything that's heated. However, if you go to a foundry, it would be completely different. If you go to somewhere that's high industry, there is more severe risks of crush injuries and things like that. There may be tourniquets and everything inside that first aid kit. But as a basic minimum standard for any first aid kit, once we've assessed the needs, we should have at least a guidance leaflet in there, 20 sterile plasters, 2 sterile eye pads, 4 triangular bandages, safety pins, 2 large sterile dressings, 8 medium sterile dressings, a pair of disposable gloves. That is the minimum standards. A lot will have a lot more in there than that because you'll have a lot more stuff, but that is the basic minimum. Again, you should risk assess it to the risks in your particular environment and know what you use a lot of. So, for example, if you're going through a huge amount of plasters, you may want to have more than 20 plasters. If you're working in a kitchen, you would want blue, brightly coloured waterproof plasters rather than your flesh coloured ones. You may want some of different shapes and different sizes. You'll want to check that these are all in date as well. Every first aid kit has an in date. The HSE do provide guidelines for different sized work environments that when you go and buy your first aid kits, you can buy them by the size of your workplace. But please be prepared to have a look at these and see if you can add additional things in that are specific to your industry. Because it's tools that you will hopefully never use, but are there for you to use in case you need it. Accident and incident reporting. All accidents and incidents should be reported, even if it's just a simple cut finger. Yeah. The reason we report these is not to get anyone into trouble. The reason is because if we have consistently the same accident all the time, our health and safety partners can look at the problems that we're having and put measures in place to prevent them happening to anyone in the future. It's all a matter of preventing the next accident. It's also good to have it on file because in today's culture where no claim, no blame, we should always record anything that we do. So what should we record? The date and time and place of incident, the name and role of the person that was injured, the details of the incident and what first aid was given. If they refuse first aid treatment, we should record it there as well. We have recorded that an incident's taking place and that we offered first aid. But because we weren't given their consent, which is very important to have, we couldn't do anything. The name and signature of the person reporting. Yeah? And it must be kept in accordance with the Data Protection Act, or GDPR as a lot of people still call it. It should be kept under lock and key. It is personal information and should not be shared out with the people who should not know it. When I say lock and key, it could be a digital lock and key that it's under. The best time to record this is straight after the incident, when it's fresh in your memory and then when it's fresh in your mind. Once your incident's finished, you should record it, then top up your first aid kit. Make sure it's back to ready in case anyone needs it. As well as reported incidents internally to our HSC partners, we may also have to report them to the HSC executive under the RIDDER Act. It's the RIDDER Injuries, Dangers and Diseases and Dangerous Occurrences Regulations 2013. This is where you have injuries that cause workers to be off over 7 days, or injuries to non-workers on site, so any visitors or subcontractors can all be RIDDER reportable. Also, deaths fall into this category as well, and major injuries, major fractures and dislocations, and loss of limbs and things like that. Anything that arises that is quite serious from our workplace incident. Normally, it's not the first aider that will report this. Normally, they will report it to their HSE member, who will report it. But it's good to know that you need to report it straight to your HSE member so that they can do their due diligence and report it. Again, this is about prevention. It's not about getting anyone in trouble. It's about stopping it happening to anybody in the future. So in this module, we've covered a little bit about the legislation that we need to know about risk assessing the workplace, about how many first aiders we should have. We've also had a little look at accident reporting, whether that be internally to our own people or whether that be the HSE guidelines. We've also looked at the contents of a first aid kit. And again, when we're looking at all this stuff, we're providing suitable and sufficient training for the people that we ask to do the job. That includes our first aiders. They should all be suitably and sufficiently trained to the job they're doing. Hence why we do first aid courses and we refresh them every 3 years. Thank you.